There are simple abilities that destroy opponents with overwhelming force, abilities that manipulate scientific concepts, abilities that shift the tides of politics and war, and even abilities that are sort of absurd. However, abilities you should never overlook are those which require you to use every ounce of brain power you have. Sometimes they may look simple at a glance, but they often require hyper-specific knowledge of scientific concepts or ingenuity to beat. There are 3 abilities that instantly fall under these categories, and I want to take a look at them and explore them. Kiara's curse technique, known as Love Rendezvous, is heavily based on the concept of the Southern Cross constellation. There are 5 stars in this constellation, known as Imai, Acrux, Mimosa, Ginin, and Gaycrux. By making some kind of prior physical contact, Kiara is able to mark individuals with these stars. However, this marking can only work on individuals with cursed energy. For objects, she must imbue her own cursed energy into it to mark it. Only one type of star can be used to mark an individual or object at a time. However, multiple of the same star can be placed on different objects as well, which has unique effects. There's one fundamental principle: multiple objects with the same star must exist within the same exact location, so an object marked with Acrux will violently attract other objects marked with Acrux as well. Anything with the same cursed energy as a marked object will also violently be attracted, such as Megami's Shikigami. Since they all have its cursed energy, it is often used in an offensive way, as Kiara can mark anything regardless of size with a star, and then that object will be violently attracted towards her opponent. However, the main advantage of this curse technique is its offensive capabilities. The Southern Cross is marked by 4 to 5 different stars, but the stars represented are not an equal distance from each other, nor is it a linear, straightforward graph like this. Space is 3-dimensional, meaning stars that look closer might actually be further away in real life than the furthest star on a graph. The correct order, according to actual distance, is Imai, Acrux, Mimosa, Ginin, and Gaycrux. And so, the curse technique uses this detail in its own unique way. You see, anyone or anything that attempt to approach Kiara will be violently repelled away from her, no matter the attack speed or power. As long as the opponent is marked, they cannot reach her. This is because of the constellation. An object marked Imai obviously cannot interact with an object marked Mimosa, because those stars are further away from each other on a celestial map. It doesn't make sense to head straight over there than stars that are far closer. In order to do this, he must first approach the appropriate stars in order. This can obviously cause a ton of confusion, especially in the heat of battle. The only reason Megami figured out how this ability worked so quickly was thanks to his obscure knowledge of stars and constellations, which he only knew thanks to his sister, Sumiki. The awareness of the Southern Cross allowed him to deduce the most optimal path to reach Kiara with little difficulty. However, without this knowledge, it would have been a big guessing game with no real tangible way to figure the ability out. Lion's Heart paired with Little King is probably one of the most unfairly simple defensive abilities in anime, and that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Lion's Heart freezes Regulus' body in a fixed state, meaning his physical condition is locked in time and completely unaffected by outside interference. Attacks don't get weakened, redirected, or resisted. They just don't register. Blades stop, explosions do nothing, and even absurd levels of force fail to produce even a scratch. What elevates his ability from broken to nearly unbeatable is Little King. Regulus removes his heart from his body and places it inside another person. As long as the heart exists somewhere else, Lion's Heart can function indefinitely without strain, cooldown, or effort. This turns Regulus into a walking paradox. The only way to harm him is to locate the hidden heart, destroy it, and then Regulus before he has the chance to transfer it again. The ability is confusing to fight because no matter what you do, there is seemingly 0 ways to do any damage to Regulus at all, and there doesn't seem to be any remote clue as to how to bypass his defense. So how the hell did Subaru figure out how his ability worked? Well, it was kinda similar to how Megami did it. During the prolonged fight with Regulus, Subaru had taken note of his body's lack of reaction to any phenomena. His hair didn't get messy, his clothes didn't get wet from water, dirt didn't appear in any part of his body. If this was simple invincibility, those factors would still exist in some way, but Subaru hadn't quite figured out everything yet. However, since Emilia had close contact with Regulus, Subaru asked her if she had any sort of hint. First, she confirmed that Regulus was referred to as Little King, and when Subaru asked if Regulus's body felt cold or hot, she responded that it felt like nothing at all. And then he had Reinhardt confirm if Regulus had a heartbeat, in which he confirmed that he didn't. These were all the clues Subaru needed to figure out the ability. Regulus means Little King in Latin. Little King is a star located in the Leo the Lion constellation, and it happens to be the brightest star at the center of the constellation, making it the Lion's Heart. Lion's Heart. Regulus doesn't have a heartbeat, meaning he doesn't have a heart. Subaru then deduces that a Little King would need subjects in his little kingdom, and thus tells Emilia to go investigate, in which she discovers the heart within the other wives. So basically, the only reason his ability was even figured out was because Subaru was aware of obscure star and constellation trivia, including the Latin names of them. It would literally be impossible for anyone else to figure out how this ability works unless they happen to possess the same piece of hyper-specific trivia. Subaru also happens to be around two people who are both in close contact with Regulus and have specific skills and abilities that would give him massive clues. The stand Jailhouse lock affects anyone who comes in contact with it, limiting their short-term memory so they can only retain 3 pieces of information at a time. Anything beyond that is instantly forgotten or overwritten. You can't form plans, track your surroundings, or even remember what you were doing 5 seconds ago if it requires holding more than 3 facts in your head. The user doesn't even need to actively fight you. The moment you're under the effect, you start sabotaging yourself. You forget who attacked you, forget where you are, forget why you're moving, and end up trapped in an endless loop of confusion where she casually controls the situation. The only reason Jolene was able to beat it was through an absurdly specific workaround. She externalized her memory by physically carving messages into her own body and using stone freeze threads as written records, effectively turning information into something she could see instead of remember. Even then, it barely worked, and only because Jolene is uniquely creative, stubborn, and already used to turning her body into a tool. In literally any other circumstance, Jailhouse lock is almost impossible to understand, let alone counter. You can't analyze the ability because analysis itself requires holding multiple thoughts at once. You can't learn from mistakes because you forget them immediately. And you can't realize you're being manipulated because that realization will be a 4th piece of information and get erased. It's an ability that attacks the act of thinking, making it one of the most unfairly complex abilities to fight.